Hi, I'm Yardley, Chief Product and Technology Officer with data.ai, and in honor of International Women's Day, we're sitting down with strong, visionary women leaders making waves in the mobile app and gaming industry. Join us as we share their journey, triumphs, and unique perspectives building a more inclusive and dynamic tech landscape. Today, we're chatting with Christina Leigh Morgan. Christina is a product growth leader at Adobe and former digital nomad who've done many amazing things based in San Francisco. At Adobe, Christina and her team are currently building out a product-led growth function across the Lightroom ecosystem. Previously, she's also led go-to-market and app store optimization for Lightroom Mobile, helped lay the foundation of product-led growth on Document Cloud Mobile, and expanded the marketing attribution program across the mobile portfolio. Thank you for joining us today, Christina.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, well, to kick us off, would you mind giving us a little bit overview of your role at Adobe?
Definitely. So you covered the details, and I'm very excited to be building out a dedicated product-led growth function for Lightroom ecosystem, including mobile, desktop, and web, within Adobe's flagship digital imaging product org. And I've been in a number of roles at Adobe over a pretty short time in 2.5 years, but really excited about deepening the roots of PLG within the digital imaging org today with my team.
That's so wonderful. How did you get started in the field and what was it like?
Oh, what a fun question. So I think the answer here depends on the time frame, right?
Sure.
I come from a family of small business owners and entrepreneurs. My grandmother was the first woman mayor of our small town for 14 years. So I guess business has always kind of been in my blood, and like in my how I grew up. I started in public relations in a couple of agencies out of school, did a travel blog. It was a digital nomad doing some consulting for a few years. And I would say I really transitioned from marketing to product through my experience at international marketplace Grabr, where I was part of the founding team and came in as a go-to-market consultant for the US launch and ended up really transitioning to product during that time. I was on the ground floor of Reforge when they were first their in-person cohorts, and that of course has scaled now to be this huge online international community with on-demand live content, but really had an opportunity to sit in the room with product leaders in 2017 and learn from growth teams being built at the time at now Meta and Google and some folks from Adobe and products of different stages, and then apply that with my team and learn from some great growth leaders who I worked with at my time in Grabr, and that's kind of where the transition was for me.
That's awesome. I think it's so interesting that you're doing like growth, and I know a lot of buzzwords around that, but I really think that from your perspective, I would love to hear, how do you think about growth and how do you think about it from a product-driven perspective that might be different from traditional product management?
Oh, great question. So for me, the definition of growth is the intersection between product, marketing, and analytics. And at the concentric circle in the middle of those three is this sweet spot where the product sells itself, the customer has such an experience that the customer does your marketing and brings other folks back in. And of course, everything is powered by analytics and data to support what the next initiative is.
Yeah.
I've worked in growth from a brand perspective, from a performance marketing perspective, from a PR perspective. And then again, when I went through Reforge and was part of the NFX accelerator, really learning about network effects, it gave me this new context. Well, and I almost felt, oh my goodness, I've been spending all my career learning all this marketing stuff, but if a user comes into the product and doesn't have an exceptional experience, such a great experience that they want to A, retain and come back, and B, go forth and tell friends, all my work was in vain. I got to figure out how to do this other thing,
Right.
And so it was this big, light bulb aha moment for me. And there are a number of ways, of course, within the product that you create that experience and that you do that. But my definition of growth is very holistic at the intersection between the product experience, the marketing and storytelling that goes out into the world, and always powered by the analytics.
I love that. That's super relevant. When you think about hurdles that you've had to be overcome as a woman in this industry, what might these hurdles be? And do you feel, given your wide range of different functions in your career, have you seen that be a little different? Have you changed from function to function?
Yes, also a great question. So I have to open this with saying, I feel so lucky to have come up as a woman in this time. There has objectively, historically, generationally never been a better time to be a woman in business. We are coming up on 50 years of being able to have our own bank accounts here in the US. And wow, what progress over that time period, right? Here I am having a conversation with a SVP of a data company, right? I get to work in this big enterprise and build a team. It's never been a better time to be a woman building new things. And so I open there. But challenges, of course, still exist. There is, of course, still generations of old ways of being and working in the world that affect women in business today. There are still glass ceilings. There are still ways that women have to show up by delivering the results first, whereas, men can have the opportunity to be seen in their potential. This is particularly true in the areas of venture capital, early stage firms gaining funding. I will say I feel very lucky to be at Adobe, where we have extreme diversity. We have great representation of women in leadership. And that was something that, drew me to the company. But I feel lucky that my personal experience has not been held back for being a woman. I've worked with some great female founders, and that's been important to me in my journey. I also acknowledge that is a very real reality for many. I was an advisor for a company called Elpha, both, but Elpha is what I'm referencing here, which is a community for women in tech. It's like a Reddit-like forum that spun out of Y Combinator. And, I've just read so many stories and heard so many stories. And so I acknowledge that a lot of women do face significant challenges. But from my perspective, we're in a pretty good spot as long as we keep moving forward.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What kind of advice would you give to women just starting a career in the mobile app development publishing space?
Oh yeah, go for it. Do it. I mean, again, what a time to be alive, right? With the speed of AI development, you don't even need to have all of the technical skills that were required a mere 2 years ago to create something new and get it off the ground. So, wow, just go for it, bring your creative forth. Don't hesitate. Speed is the number one competitive advantage. Don't worry about things being perfect at the gate, because they will not be.
Yeah.
And just go for it.
Makes sense. Well, what does Women's Day mean to you personally?
Also great. I think it's an opportunity to reflect, right? And to appreciate how far we've come. I think in preparation for this conversation, it gave me an opportunity to sit and think, wow, over 50, 100 years, like, we are here now, and we are here now for a reason. And so I think it's an opportunity to give thanks. We stand on the shoulders of giants, and to look ahead and to acknowledge the, real challenges that exist still today that are an opportunity for us to tackle, but mostly an opportunity to, thank my grandmother and my mom and, our community of peers and women who have come before us, and also take the, responsibility to continue to pave the way for those who will follow.
Makes sense. Well, I know you've mentioned your grandmother a few times, so it's only natural to ask, what inspiring women do you admire in your life that's been like key role models for you?
Oh, of course. Yeah, definitely grandma.
Yeah, sounds like she's powerhouse.
Yeah, just so grateful. And such as you get older, you have more, perspective on things, right? And something I admire, I've grown in my admiration, I would say, in recent years, is not only the way that she showed up for the community, but also the way that she always showed up at home. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I couldn't imagine giving so much of myself in so many areas of life, right? As a community leader and a mother and a wife and a daughter and sister and friend and, beloved and all these roles. And so I feel grateful to have had that very strong inspiration, in my family unit with my grandma and my mom. In the industry, I think that has to be said here. Some amazing women. Joanna Lord has a talk, The Habits of High Growth Companies, that I have had any team I've ever worked on, read and dissect or watch, and dissect. Also, Elena Verna, absolute queen of growth and funny memes on LinkedIn. So check her out if you haven't seen her work already. And also, a colleague of mine here at Adobe who has taught me a ton about product marketing, Mary Sheen. She has a book on product marketing that came out recently. And coming from startups, the world of product marketing was pretty ambiguous to me coming into enterprise. And so just a great way to digest everything and kind of get up to speed all at once through a very tactical book that she wrote. So those are some top.
I love that. I'm going to have to check out some of these. What's next for you then and for women in your field as you look forward?
We have a very exciting trajectory ahead for product-led growth on Lightroom, as well as here at Adobe. And so I definitely see a several-year trajectory of lots of growth and expansion in that area. In my personal future, I would love at some point to, have the resourcing and availability to be able to support early stage female founders in a more structured way through an accelerator program or an angel or VC fund. I am a venture scout, and so I do sometimes help connect the dots between early stage teams and, other funds today. But I'd love to build that out as I continue down my professional path.
That's wonderful. Okay, my final question is, what is the best piece of advice that you've been given?
Best piece of advice I have been given is whether you start now or 6 months from now, the time will pass anyway. And the context of that is that so often when we have these big, hairy, audacious goals, we can push them out and say, oh, that's going to take 2 years. That's going to take 10 years. That's going to take 5 years. Well, the time is going to pass anyway. And so if you start today, you're moving in that direction. So don't wait.
That's good. Yeah, that's really good advice. So no one procrastinates, really. Just being able to start, right, is the first step. That's
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Christina, for being with us today on Discussion of Women Leaders in the Mobile Space. And thank you so much for everyone watching. If you enjoyed this, please make sure to check out other Data AI conversations for this series celebrating International Women's Day. Thanks again.